Hello, my name is Emily and this is my channel, Books for Life. Welcome! If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. If you are not new here, thank you so much for coming back again. So today I'm here to talk to you about all of the audiobooks that I listened to during the months of September and October. So during the months of September and October, I think I did pretty well. I listened to 8 or 9 audiobooks, and some of them I listened to on Audible and others I listened to on Overdrive, which I only learned about in the beginning of September. My aunt told me about it, so thank you to you, Aunt Bonnie. I really appreciate that. I can't believe that I've lived my life without Overdrive. I am just devouring books on Overdrive now, and I'm so happy that I have that. So if you are wondering, how do you find free audiobooks to listen to, check out Overdrive and get a community library card, and you will be all set. So the first book that I listened to during the month of September was Surprise Me by Sophie Kinsella, and the first audiobook that I really listened to at all was a Sophie Kinsella book, and so I was pretty excited to find another one by her that I had available to me in Overdrive. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars. So this book is about a young couple with twins who are living like the perfect life. They are completely happy with each other. They love the life they're living. They get along really well. Things are just going really well for them, and they decide to go to the doctor for their annual physicals, and the doctor makes a comment about how lifespans have increased and they can probably have another 68 years together. And so this idea just keeps replaying in their mind, 68 years together, nobody else for 68 years. And so things kind of begin falling apart a little bit, and they decide to do something called surprise me activities. And so they did want to surprise each other to help keep their love alive and their relationship alive. And so some of the surprises turn out really great and others don't. And because of that, they end up having some other issues and things happen, and it is a story of relationships and love, and it's fun. I liked it. I loved the ending. It's a very just cutesy adult chick lit novels, and it would be a great one for you. There wasn't a lot of depth to it, so don't expect it to be mind-blowing and give you a lot to think about. It was just an easy, cutesy read. The next 2 books I listened to in September, and I actually have them as part of my vlog, and I will leave a card to that above, so if you want to check out my vlog, you can. I talk about each of these a little bit more in depth there. So the first one is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is a book that I listened to because BookTube made me. Everyone was listening to it, or reading it. Everyone was talking about how amazing it was, and because of the hype that it got, I wanted to find out what everyone was talking about, and wow, I loved it. I did not see the plot twist at the end. I wasn't expecting that at all, which I absolutely loved. I loved how Evelyn Hugo was her, and she made no apologies and no excuses for who she was. That was her, take it or leave it, and I loved that about her. I thought she was truly a strong female character. I love that, she took charge of her life and she did what she needed to do in order to achieve her dreams, and she wasn't going to let anyone stand in her way. But then on the flip side of that, you realize that sometimes when you do that, you lose the people you love along the way, and what is important in your life. And I loved that. I really, really enjoyed the story. I could not stop listening to it. It is a powerful story, but it was an excellent audiobook. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 5. And then I listened to Eldest, and Eldest is the second book in the Aragon series, and if you go check out my vlog, you will tell that I got very frustrated because I felt like nothing happened. In this book, Aragon is getting to the elves so that the elves can train him so that he will know, what to do, because he's the last dragon rider. And I kid you not, it took until chapter 26 or something until he got to the elves, and I was just so bored. I felt like nothing was happening, and I'm listening to this on a 4.5 hour car ride, and I'm zoning out. I'm not paying attention because nothing is happening. And he creates like this brilliant world, and there's so much beauty in this world, but at some point, I mean, quit the world building and just get to the action. So I'm on hour 15 out of 23, which is just a crazy amount. So at this point, I have DNF'd it. I think I will go back and slowly listen to pieces, like if I'm between books, you know, I may listen to it for a little bit, because I did use one of my Audible credits on it, and you know, I do want to know what happens, but I don't know that I will continue with this series. I would only do that if I had the audiobooks for free, and I'm not reading them. I'm not dedicating that kind of time to read them. So maybe over the course of the next couple of years, I'll slowly listen to this series, but at this point, I am DNFing it. So I guess I'm going to give this like a 2 out of 5 because I haven't finished it. I do enjoy this world, and I love the idea of the story, but, you know, if I can't finish it, that's a problem. So that was another book that I read. And again, I talked about it in my vlog, so feel free to check that out. And then you'll notice I'm using the notebook that I got in my Terrace and Rising book box from Flick the Wick. So, woohoo! Then I listened to Rust and Stardust by T. Greenwood. And this has to be the best book that I have read in 2018. It's been about a month now since I listened to it, and I still find myself thinking about it. And I'm not going to tell you too much because I have an entire video dedicated just to that, and I'll leave a card above if you want to go check that out. But this is about the kidnapping of Sally Horner, and Sally was 11 years old when Frank LaSalle kidnapped her. He convinced her that he was an FBI agent, and he took her away and obviously changed her life forever. And the way that this was written so beautifully, and it's such a haunting tale, and I cried so many times while reading this because I just kept thinking about like my child and, you know, my students, and like what if something like this were to ever happen to them. And I just kept thinking about like, you know, her innocence. Like she was such a curious and just innocent child. Like, you know, she really looked at the world with wonder, and she was one of those kids who never stopped asking questions, and that was stolen from her. She became silent. She stopped talking to people. She was withdrawn. She, you know, had a completely different look on the world because of this, and you know, how can this not change you? And it just kills me that, you know, like this brilliant light was, you know, smothered. And it was just a heart-wrenching novel. It is utterly amazing. I mean, I think it is. If you check it out, please let me know what you think. But this is, you know, 6 out of 5 stars. 10 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I can't find any fault with it. I just loved this book. The next book that I listened to was The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. This is another book that has been getting quite a bit of hype on BookTube. I just wanted a story to help get me in the mood for Halloween, so I listened to this one. I haven't actually read the original Frankenstein, so I'm not sure how closely this connects to it, which is like the biggest question that I have now. I want to know, like, did they talk about Victor Frankenstein's childhood in the original? How much of a role does Elizabeth play in the original? I am curious, and I have a beautiful copy from Second Star Books that I can now read. But I enjoyed this book. I didn't, you know, love it, but I was intrigued. I wanted to know more. I, you know, felt suspense throughout. Like, there are times when I was like, you know, just listening because I wanted to keep going. I wanted to know what would happen. I didn't know how the story would end. I was like, you know, on the edge of my seat at the very end trying to figure out what would happen, and I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a great story to get me in the mood for Halloween. So if you are a person who enjoys reading books that connect to like the season that we are currently in and you didn't listen to it, I would save it for next year, and the audio was a great way to go for it. Then I listened to And the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness, and I have read other books by Patrick Ness, like the Monster is Calling one, and I really enjoyed that one, and so I was like, ooh, this one sounds good. And it was only like 3 hours on audio, which was nice because so many of my books are like 10, 12, eldest is 23 hours, so it was nice to have a really short one, but I was so disappointed in it. I was bored. I thought it was a very interesting concept, but I thought it was a weird concept. I just was completely unimpressed. Some of the language was beautiful, and I loved the connection that Patrick Ness made with the whale and the sailor that they captured, but I had a very hard time like picturing this story in my head. Like when they talked about how the whales like form like their own ship, I didn't quite understand what that meant. And I don't know if it's because I listened to it and I didn't have those pictures. I heard that the actual physical copy of the book is full of illustrations, and maybe if I had those illustrations, that would have made this a better experience for me. So maybe this is one that you shouldn't listen to, but instead should read. I did find myself confused at times. Well, I was just very disappointed. I thought there was going to be more to it than there was. So I'm only going to give this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I'm not sad that I listened to it, but I'm not going to recommend it to anyone, and I'm never going to listen to it again. Hi! So sorry about that. My camera died. I have a rechargeable camera, so it's going to be a while before I can use it again. So I just thought I would use my phone and finish filming this. So the last audiobook series that I have been listening to is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. I have completely read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, Daughter of Blood, and Starlight, and I am about 7 hours into Dreams of Gods and Monsters, and I am absolutely loving this series. I'm a little bummed that I missed this series when it came out. I don't know how I missed all the hype on this, but somehow I did, and that kind of like the nice thing about this is that I can just binge listen to the entire series, which I'm really enjoying. So this is like a magical realism or like urban fantasy type novels. So it takes place in our world, and in our world there are these portals that will bring you to a parallel universe, and in this parallel universe there are seraphim, which are angel-like creatures. They're man, but they have wings, and these wings have feathers, and these feathers are like constantly like on fire, and so people think they look like angels. And then you also have the chimera, and the chimera are like the beasts of this world, and the chimera and the seraphim have been fighting for 1,000 years. The chimera are a mix of creatures and humans like together. So it might have like the body of a woman, but like the head of a jackal and the tail of a fox or something. Like it is a combination of creatures together to make one individual. And so there are different types of chimera, and the seraphim have enslaved the chimera, and so the chimera rebelled, and there has been a war going on. And so the main character in this, her name is Karu, and she is a human, and she has been living in the shop of one of the chimera. She doesn't really know that there are other chimera out there. She's only met 4 of them, and she just kind of thinks like that is like the world and that's all that there is. She will go do like these tasks for them, and then she comes back like that's kind of like her home, like that's where she was raised. She is in the human world, like she's going to art school right now, and you know she has her own apartment, but you know the Brimstone and the other chimera there have basically raised her, and so like that's her family. And so one day something happens that make the portals close, and she cannot access her family anymore. And so this turns into an adventure to try to figure out like why the portals close and how can she reach her family again. And there's so much more to it, but that's a basic, you know, gist of it. I am really enjoying this series. I am hooked. I am, you know, devouring them. Like this last one is 18 hours long, and I haven't had it for very long, and I'm already 7 hours into it. You know, in less than a week I listened to the first 2, and they were, you know, 14 or 16 hours long. So I'm really loving this. If you are a huge fantasy reader, then this might be a great one for you. If you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend this one. It is beautiful. The Laini Taylor has an amazing imagination to have created, you know, this world, and I love how she has integrated so many different pieces with it, and it still flows, you know, seamlessly. So these were all of the audiobooks that I listened to during the months of September and October. I will post a video talking about all of the books that I read for the months of September and October soon, but let me know if you have listened to and or read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Keep reading!